Hey guys, welcome back. So now for this one, we're getting back into the Thor series, and it's here where the race for the Black Infinity Stone continues, but also with us now finding Dr. Doom in the mix, it's also here where we finally learn what his plan is. So with that said, let's get into it. But first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week, and don't forget to hit that bell up top so we can squad up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so when we jump back in, we pick up with Doom in Latveria, and leading up to this point, his plan for the most part has been shrouded in mystery, and all we really know at this time is that he wants access to what Thor has hidden away. He's been collecting an untold number of souls, and he's kidnapped Hela, but up until now we haven't been told his plans in their entirety. But per usual, if you leave it up to Doom, he'll keep talking, and for Doom it really doesn't matter if he has an audience or not. But it's here where we jump back in, where we find Doom telling Hela how the animals in the wild, they don't search for the meaning of life. They breed and they feed, they live and they die, and their lives are no more complete than actual people. And Doom goes on to tell her that it's the fools who believe that it's intelligence that separates people from these wild animals. And he goes on to tell her that that's not true, because there's no one observing the earth from the outside who would ever mistake the human race for intelligent. And really with Doom saying this is just building on top of what he said before, when he mentioned that humanity doesn't have the attention span for Armageddon, and how as we approach the end, only Doom has the resolve to do what needs to be done. But it's here with Doom giving one of his long-winded condescending speeches, where he pulls out another round-bottom flask and he tells Hela that inside of this one, it's Karnilla, Hela's wife. And really for the longest time, I never believed that there was an emotional investment, let alone any true romantic interest between Hela and Karnilla, because even their wedding was last minute. Because back in Thor Volume 5 Issue 4, Hela was getting ready to marry Balder, but things got messy, Karnilla slipped in, and she just slid the wedding ring on Hela's finger and said, "I do." And really, when I saw this, I was like, I don't know if that's legal. But lo and behold, this is how we got the two queens of hell. And I mean, over time, it seemed like they were getting closer, but I don't know if I would say that it got to the point to where Hela would be here saying, "Oh no, my beloved Karnilla." But I mean, this could be one of the other things that just brings them together. Who knows? But after this, when we head back to Thor and Jane, who are still in hell, yet again Thor is realizing that Odin is gone. And really in this instance, it's not so much of a mystery as far as the first guess of what may have happened, with Odin disappearing while Thor was fighting Nidhogg, the eater of the dead. So right away this causes Thor to take off and go after Nidhogg and leave Jane behind with the goats, who at this point are seconds away from being eaten by the Valravens. So for Jane, she's got to stop this and go after Thor. And she does, she handles it rather quickly, but then the goats start chewing on the remains of the dead, because goats will eat anything. But not before long, she rounds up Tooth Gnasher and Tooth Grinder, and she tells them to follow the king. But for Thor, it isn't long before he catches up with the dragon, who, again for Nidhogg, who at this point is more machine than beast, he no longer hungers for flesh like he used to. But in this moment when Thor successfully gets Nidhogg's attention and demands him to release Odin, Nidhogg then turns around and looks at Thor like another soul to devour. And it's here where Thor quickly realizes that the tables have turned and now he's the one being pursued. But then from here we jump over to Asgard, but 16 years in the future Asgard. And it's here where we catch up with the older Lausa, Thor's baby sister, who's attempted to cloak herself and make her way to a secret location, but along her way she's been caught by Thor's ravens. So she knows she needs to act quick before they bring Thor to her and her little secret mission is revealed. But it's here where we find that the secret mission that teenage Lausa is up to, it's actually bringing back Corvus Glaive. Because for him, as long as his blade is intact, he can recover from nearly anything. And once Corvus is reunited with his glaive by using the smallest speck of his own DNA, this allows his entire body to reform. But it isn't long after this happens where Laus is pretty much like, "Ew, put on my cloak." But Lausa has yet to discover that this reformation is only a shell of Corvus Glaive. And I mean, eventually he's able to form sentences, but it's without a doubt that Corvus's soul is not here. And then next, when we go back to Thor in the present day, it's here where we see that Nidhogg is not wasting any time on making Thor his next soulful meal. And it's not before long when Nidhogg quickly discovers that attempting to eat the king of Asgard, who is also the god of thunder, is a very dangerous thing to do without checking the label, as Thor tells the beast that he asked for this and he calls for thunder. And from here, with Nidhogg spitting out Thor along with a cloud of smoke, the beast then swiftly makes its attempt to get away as it races towards an opening portal, and Thor knows that he has to go after it, because if he doesn't, there's a chance that Odin could be lost forever. And with seeing this, immediately Thor and Jane rush into this portal behind Nidhogg without even so much as the certainty to know if they'll even get Odin back, because at this time there's no telling what truly happened to the dead who are missing. But from here, when we head back over to Latveria with Doom, Hela, and Karnilla, it's here we find that Hela has nearly figured out what Doom is up to, because she tells him that it takes great power to break a soul apart, and the amber that Doom is using is powerful because it stems from the shell of the Galactus Seed, which is a powerful artifact that we talked about in the previous video. But Hela goes on to let Doom know that the ambers won't be enough, but instead Doom would need the actual shell itself. And nonetheless, she goes on to let Doom know that what he's doing is a fool's dream, with him standing between the living and the dead and playing with magical forces that he doesn't understand. But I mean, really, when does that ever stop Doom? But then also with Doom reading aloud, he mentions, "And through the numen of the many shall one ruler stand." And right there, Hela's just like, oh, so you think that this ritual will make you the ruler of life and death? Is that what this is? Do you want to be a god? And from here, Doom ever so graciously enlightens Hela by telling her that he believes that long ago the gods granted humanity with free will so that humanity could worship them, because you can't worship without free will. But at the time when the gods did this, it was the most selfish mistake in all of history, and Doom plans to unmake it. And he goes on to tell her that he's not doing this to be worshipped, and on top of that, Doom does not need to be a god. And from here, Hela's just like, well, of course, you just want the power of one. And in response, Doom lets her know that he is doing this to save humanity. He's sacrificing the dead to save the living, and where Bor failed, Doom will succeed. But Hela then lets him know that Bor didn't fail. And years ago when Bor did the ritual, it was actually a success. But just after this, we then go right back to future Asgard. And it's here where we find that Lausa really doesn't know what she's doing, because she's trying the interrogation thing, but you can tell rather quickly that that's the part that she's kind of just making up as she goes. But she goes on to tell Corvus, or really more or less his body and his brain, that he owes her some answers. And really for the most part, he either repeats what she says or he just complies. But it isn't before long here where she asks this Corvus about when she was a child and he took her and used her blood to open the vault. And it's here where she asks him what was he after? And in response, he tells her the stone. And right away from there, she's like, what stone? The black stone? And she tells him that she searched the entire vault and she hasn't found it. It's not there. And with her saying this, Corvus is kind of just sitting there and looking at her. And it causes her to ask Corvus next, what's wrong with you? But then right away, the Thor of this time steps in and he tells Lausa that Corvus' soul is gone. And it left Corvus back in the cave 16 years ago when Thor killed him. And Thor goes on to let Lausa know that at the time when this had happened, killing Corvus was not Thor's intention, but instead it was the amber in the cave that twisted Thor's lightning and caused his attack to be more lethal. And then next, this Thor goes on to tell Lausa that he had hoped to keep her away from the Forbidden Zone, in fear of what magical contaminations would take hold of her and what they would do. But then he goes on to give Lausa her sword, while telling her that he's been waiting 16 years, wondering what he would do in this moment and what he would say. And though even now he doesn't quite exactly have the words, he gives her the sword while telling her that she did win it fair and square, even if she had no business battling the trolls in the first place. But Thor knows that it will serve her well in the upcoming fight. And then next, Lausa asks Thor if this is the moment where she goes back in time to see him, and he tells her yes, and that she should go, and he'll stay here and look after Corvus Glaive, or what's left of him. And from here, where we go back to present day, we find that Nidhogg had led both Thor and Jane through this portal to Latveria. And as they get there, Jane begins to ask Thor what they're looking at ahead. And for Thor, he just sees a bunch of guys shooting, so he tells her that it looks like they're going to war. But for Jane, she's looking through the eyes of a Valkyrie, and she sees something that Thor doesn't, which is a castle that is actually posing as an afterlife, which means that it's likely that this is the place where Nidhogg has been taking the dead. But as they approach, they're shot down from the sky. And it's here where Thor tells Valkyrie to find his father and the dead, while he deals with the soldiers and sees if he can get them to come to their senses. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/Dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. And I gotta say, I like where this one's headed. And I'll admit, though I did predict Nidhogg's modifications being connected to Doom, as well as Doom being a self-proclaimed savior, I'll admit the Afterlife Castle caught me off guard. But also with us knowing that a fight with Doom is coming at some point in time. I'm also quite eager to see how and where Thanos steps back into all of this. But even more than that, I'm ready to see who gets their hands on the Black Infinity Stone first. But with all that said, let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comments, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.